Hi, I'm Kerry Love, and this is another episode of Unfiltered with Love. Today I'm here with my good friend, Scott Furlong. We've known each other for, maybe 30 years now. So I asked Scott to come on and be a guest because he has a very interesting story and he's done a lot of interesting things. He was a former detective and he did end up having PTSD due to his detective work, and he's also an author. So, Scott, can you tell us a little bit about your background as a detective?
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me on. It's great, and I love what you're doing with your podcast because you're connecting with people, and I think that's very important, particularly in today's world with everything going on. Human connections very much needed, I think. So, yeah. Look, I was sworn into the police service in 1999. I think you said we've known each other for about 30 years. It'd have to be 30 plus years, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
mid 90s, early to mid 90s, but
yeah.
yeah.
Former
So.
roommates.
We were roommates, yeah, back in the good old days.
Yep.
So look, yeah, joined the Queensland Police. My father and grandfather were both police officers, so I joined the police, and it's where I met my wife, my wife of 25 years, I think. And we've got one little boy who's 20. He's not little; he's about 7 foot tall. But yeah, so joined the police. I went into what they call plain clothes pretty much really early. I spent 2 years in uniform, and then went into plain clothes and became a detective, and spent a lot of time in regional as a regional detective, and then specialised. I went into homicide. I was there for about 10 years, and then when I medically retired in 1999, I was the officer in charge of a detective unit of about 60 odd detectives for a district in Queensland here.
So, what led to your PTSD?
Well, I think it's an occupational hazard. I think really, I think I think most police or law enforcement officers would have a form or some form or an amount of post-traumatic stress. Look, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. The trauma that you see, the trauma that you go through in policing, really
Mm-hmm.
leads to that. And I think it's sort of in a roundabout sort of way. Also, I think how you deal the support that you're offered, how you deal with it, and how it determines how it manifests itself, I think, and how it builds up and gradually builds up. So I was diagnosed with major depression and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, so CTPD, PTSD, yeah, which is just that ongoing exposure to the traumatic events in your life that you see and deal with.
Yeah. So, when did things start to shift for you? So, you were dealing with that,
Yeah,
and then you got out of the police
yeah.
work.
So look, I knew I had PTSD. I was diagnosed early on. I think about 2004. I was diagnosed with PTSD. But
Mm-hmm.
the culture of law enforcement, particularly where I was, is that you didn't do it. You just dealt with it. And I think the way I dealt
Yeah.
with it was to embed myself in the work that I was doing, and just to throw myself into it. And it's very much it's taboo to, I guess, identify, talk about, or put your hand up, which is totally the wrong way to go about it, but that's
Mm-hmm.
what I did, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and kept working. And yeah, okay, I had PTSD. It was a thing, but I did nothing about it. And
Did they offer any support?
no, not really. No, they don't. There's a period that they did, particularly not in the early stages. It was just something that it's just not dealt with, not handled. And look, I
Yeah.
mean, it's an organisation, and it opens themselves up to litigation. But so they brought in certain
Mm.
types of, we were supposed to be, I think, seen by the psychologist once a year or once every couple. Look, I think I might have seen them once,
Mm-hmm.
but in and of that, you just you didn't acknowledge it. You were weak if you were to do that, so you never
Yep.
did that. You just went about. I traveled the state, investigating murders. I mean, mate, it was like you're 10 years old, it's Christmas Day, and you just give them the keys to Toys R Us. It was the greatest job in the
Mhm.
world. There's no way I wanted to put any of that in jeopardy.
Mhm.
And you didn't think about it. You just went, you just kept pushing and kept going forward. But holy smokes, yeah. It gets to a point where you just don't have a say, your body, your mind, it just
Mhm.
takes over, and um,
Mhm.
it just captures you, and it doesn't matter what you try to do here. You're at its mercy, and you can't do anything.
Yep.
It's like saying you want to turn your body left and it just turns right. You've got no control. So you just find yourself in that position.
Do you think too, like, you're saying this, and we're talking about the support and how you just, you would, if you tried to get support, you'd look weak. Do you think that that's something to do with being a man too? Uh,
Um, but I think it's more law enforcement more generally. Like I think, talking earlier before you came on, and I think I mentioned to you, I had like 8 colleagues that I work with commit suicide. And
Mhm.
some of those were female. You know,
Uh-huh.
and so look, it doesn't discriminate. It certainly
Mhm.
doesn't. Yeah, whether it's harder for men, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a terribly debating workplace injury that you sustain, and it just grabs you, and like we call it the black dog. I don't know if you call it over there, but yeah,
Mhm.
it just keeps nipping at your
Do you think
heels.
like a lot of police officers have it? I've never
I would
really looked.
suspect so. Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, in some form,
Okay.
and to some degree. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely.
So when did you start to shift? So I know now you've done a lot of things though since your time in the police. That you took theology
Yeah,
courses,
that's right. So
and so
yeah,
so,
look,
so tell a little bit about
I
that.
think when everything came to a head in 2019, I suffered an acute, um, real debilitating post-traumatic stress, and medically retired. I just had this draw, this sense of self, sense of something else, and it drew me to,
Mm.
I guess, to my faith, to my theology, and I think you look a bit different at things, and you look a bit, and when you can stop, and you can stop your mind for a certain period of time, and because I think you're always in protection mode. You're always in business mode, and that's how you survived. Is you built up walls,
Mhm.
and you protected yourself. And the way for me to do that was to throw myself into work and what have you. But when you stop, you start to look at things differently. I think, and you look at, I guess, when you look at music, and you think of, okay, I like that music, but you tend to look at the soul behind who wrote that music. All the painting, what the soul that went into creating that piece of art that you like, or cooking that food that you like. It's just not the steak; it's how it's cooked, how it's prepared, the person who did it.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at trauma, I don't know, and I'm not a psychologist and not a medical professional by any means, but I think you try to give yourself, or you try to find understanding or reason as to why these things happen, and to all the trauma in your life, and you try to look at and understand, um, and try and make sense of what has happened and how it's happened, and I think for me that's maybe what I looked at a bit deeper, and tried to look at. Uh, um, Trying to look at all these sorts of reasons why, and I mean, sometimes there is no reason, but just trying to look, I guess, and understand, I think, and have a different perspective and piece together in my mind. I think, that it can't be for nothing. We can't be a trash society that just does away with each other. Do you know what I mean? I know there's a lot of bad things.
Yep.
Bad things happen, and people say, "Well, if life was so good, or if your God was so good, why do they let things happen, and why do bad things happen?"
Mhm.
And so there's, I guess, a lot of deeper underlying theological principles that might go with that, and I certainly don't understand it all, and I can't understand it all. One day I might get to ask him, but um, for me, it's understanding that it's not all about a tit for tat economy that we live in. There's a deeper sense of person, of human being behind our existence, good, bad, and ugly, because it's all one. We're all good, we're all bad, we're all ugly. So it's understanding that and giving value, which I think I saw a lot of. Um, Not, I guess, disvalue is not the right word, but a lot of um, devalued people in their life, and there's got to be greater respect. You know,
I agree with you.
so,
And I agree with you. I like what you say too about seeing things behind the music and things like that, because I agree with that 100%.
yeah,
Because I feel like I do that now more too.
yeah.
That I look at the things behind. It's not surface level anymore,
No,
right?
that's right.
It's not
No,
surface level.
and
So,
I think I did that, and I was surface level because it's how I kept myself safe. And how
mhm.
I was, and I
Mhm.
thought I'm of. It's how I valued myself as a human being. Is if I wasn't doing this job or I wasn't doing this, I was of no value. I was meaningless. I
Mhm.
didn't have an identity. And when you transition out or you medically retire, and your identity is so taken from you that you search for, well, and you have those, I'm worthless. So what do I do? I have no value. So you keep
Mhm.
chasing, you try and reinvent yourself and you keep chasing it. And like you mentioned earlier, I then went on and did a law degree. Now,
Mhm.
did I do that because I thought that if I didn't do that, if I was Scott Furlong working at 7-Eleven, in my mind, am I of less value than Scott Furlong? He's got a law degree, you know,
Mhm.
perhaps, but
Mhm.
and that's not right at all. That's totally wrong. We're all of value.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all have we
Sure.
all have a purpose in life, and it doesn't matter your status or what your name is or how many letters you've got after your name. It's how you walk upon the earth. It's what you do, how you tread, how you treat people. And I think I'm just, even after doing that to the law degree at great expense, I'm just starting to come and identify that and learn that and understand it. So still in a massive transformation, still trying to find self, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. Aren't we all?
Yeah, yeah.
We all are. So, did trauma affect how you related to people? Did it change your relationships at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. My word, it did. Yeah, yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
it's it does. You are, and it depends on the type of person. Like you don't form friendships or deep meaning friendships. You're hyper vigilant of my son. I used to worry about, because you see death occur in many different ways, whether it be a traffic crash,
Mhm.
a homicide, accidental. You're just surrounded by it, and you can't help but think, at any given moment, something could happen to your loved ones, to your wife, your
Mhm.
child. And so I think it did. It does. You build up a massive, massive wall to people, and you don't form those friendships because I think you try to protect yourself.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. And you're still married,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
a good testament to, like, because I'm sure
I was all hep,
sure that was
I was
hard.
all hepped up on goofballs. That's how I think I got through it. I was mad. I'm medicated. I was
Don't have
medicated.
don't have Tanisha listen to this.
That's right. I got to the point, she stuck with me through everything, through a lot, all the bad
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm at the point now, I think she's just damn bad luck. You know?
I thought you were gonna say she's just a good lady.
I think she's bad luck, mate. Gotta get out of here.
Oh,
Oh
she's
no, no,
good.
it's
She's
great.
good.
Yeah, well, she was a police officer herself who was medically retired with
That's right.
PTSD. So
Did too.
yeah, 2011. Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
2011, she
Wow.
medically retired PTSD. Yeah, yeah. And
Yep.
so
Oh.
look, yeah. So it's
Well, but it's kind of good then, but that you have someone there with you that's kind of can at least kind of know what you're going
yeah, I
through,
think so.
right?
Yeah, but geez, we ask a lot of our
Yeah.
partners, and
Oh,
our
yeah.
family,
Yeah.
and but you don't
Sure.
know, you know, and I don't know, it's what it is, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. So so we talked about you did the theology and you got your law degree
Yeah,
and so now you have your own business.
yeah,
So you want to talk a little bit about that and then also your
yeah.
books
Okay.
because you're an author now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so and I think going back to that value space, and all I
Mhm.
knew and I know how to do is to investigate, be an investigator. So my business is Furlong and Associates Investigation Consultancy. So I do investigation work and consultancy work in the investigation and business space.
Mhm.
And I probably did that because it's all I know how to do. You know, it's all I know how to do. And it's familiar. It's something that I probably need to branch out from and pivot away from, um,
Mhm.
because it is all I know how to do.
Because are you still getting back into the element?
Yeah,
You're not, I mean, obviously you're not doing the same kind of work you did as a police officer, but it's still kind of investigative, right?
yeah, yeah, that's right. You're still back in that realm. But I
Mhm.
guess it's the fear of then what do I do? Where do I go? What do I do?
Mhm.
Particularly at my age, that's going to pay the bills. Who's going to employ? And
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So, yeah, like I said, it's, always transforming, I guess, and trying and looking out a roadmap and a road plan. I think I've just been so, like law enforcement, you're so institutionalized and you're so structured in your thinking and in your daily habits and in your life that everything has to be structured. Everything you do, and it's like life is structured. It's got to be laid out. There's got to be a plan. There's got to be, you're going from A to B. That you've got to have that mapped out. There's not. It's not just, oh, I'll try this and see what happens. That doesn't fit into the psyche, of a
Yeah.
somebody that's been in law enforcement, I think, particularly for 20
And that
years.
and that's hard for me to kind of see you that way too, because when we lived together, there was far from structure.
It was very loose. I gotta say, we were young, loving life. Yeah. Well, we just said, let's
Yeah.
go, let's go to New Orleans, all the way from Brisbane. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Off we'd trundle, pack our bags, and off we'd go.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know, maybe you gotta relive
yeah,
that. You just
maybe,
gotta
yeah.
just be back, go back to
That's
basics.
that's right. Yeah. Come over
Forget
there.
all the stuff from between
Yeah,
from them to
that's
now.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's very
Uh,
true. Maybe we've got to accept got the responsibilities of a child now in a house and all the stuff that comes with
yes,
adulting.
yes, yes.
You know, but
Yeah, darn it,
yeah,
that
yeah,
adult.
yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah, I need another business plan
So,
because quite clearly my current business plan of winning the lottery isn't working. So, you know,
but you also too, you have a lot of property there, and you have
yeah,
horses and things
10
like that, and I
acres.
bet
Yeah.
you that's been very healing, I'm
Yeah, well,
sure.
that's right. See, Tanisha used to have horses when she was little, when she was younger, than when she joined the police. All that sort of
Mhm.
fell away as you do. But when she went through her PTSD, it was a healing. She got back into it and it was healing, and it is, and
Mhm.
it saved her life. Absolutely no doubt about it. And it is
Yep.
is. Mate, let her. Can I just say, if you're having a bad day, let a horse breathe on your soul. It is absolutely
Oh.
healing, and it'll do fundamentally the best sort of therapy you can have. It's just
Mhm.
another creature
Mm.
like that is, um, just so soulful. Yeah,
And animals are like that. I mean,
yeah,
you see there are a lot of programs that they do the
yeah.
dogs for the
Yeah,
PTSD.
yeah,
So,
assistance dogs and stuff like that. So we've
mhm.
got dogs. We had 4 or 5 dogs at one stage. We've got two now.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
Two cats. We had 3 cats. Poor old Stripey's died, but so we've got 3 cats, 2 dogs,
Mhm.
4 horses.
Mhm, so you got a busy, busy,
Then
busy
and then we've
life.
got the wild kangaroos and koalas and the
That's right.
birds, you know. So
I heard some birds there earlier.
yeah.
I bet you do have kangaroos in your
Oh yeah,
yard.
they just come
Definitely.
and camp
Yeah,
in the
I
front
know.
yard. Yeah.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, they do. They
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. They're like deer.
yeah.
Deer.
We got some of those here too. Would you believe it? Yeah.
Do you have deer
Yeah.
there? I didn't realize
Deer
that.
here, yep. Yeah.
Not the white-tailed deer, though. Is it or different?
No, I think
Little
they're
Australian deer or
yeah,
something.
probably mongrel Aussie deer. You know, they'll belch you and steal your beer, you know. And keep going.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So, well, talk a little bit about your books because
So
I know you have one that you wrote about for children,
yeah,
and then you have another one that you just wrote
yeah.
recently.
I was still working on that one. But so yeah, back when I was in 2020, I wrote a book. It was called Mummy Wears Blue Shoes. So it's a conversation starter for one thing that I found, particularly when Tanisha went through her acute bout of PTSD, and then when I went through mine, we had Caden who was very young. How do
Mm-hmm.
you talk to your children about this? How do you tell them?
Mm.
They're seeing mum and dad crying. They've got to be going, what is
Yep.
going on? You know. And so
Mm-hmm.
this book is about Emily, who's 5 years old, you know, and her brother Jackson. You know, Emily wants to be a ballerina. Jackson's a rugby player. And Emily notices mum, you know, has been a bit sad lately and doesn't take her to ballet lessons anymore, or doesn't take Jackson to rugby. And I use the
Mm-hmm.
blue shoes as a metaphor, I guess. So she knows mum's wearing her blue shoes. So, and blue because they're, you know, you're blue when you're depressed, you're blue. So they're
Mm.
blue shoes. And so one night she sees mum crying and dad consoling her, and then they have the family meeting and they talk about openly about what post-traumatic stress disorder is. That mum and dad are specialist police, they're called detectives. Things have happened and mum's unwell as a result of it. Um, and that there's a new way, there's going to be a new normal for them, a new way of life, a new normal. And it's about readjusting and talking to children about how that affects them. Like, kids, they pick up on this stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They
Oh, for
we
sure.
don't give them enough credit, and they are resilient and they bounce back, but they understand, they sense when things are going on. They sense when there's been a change in routine, they sense when there's been a change in mum and dad. Um, and I had no way. When I went through it, I thought, how unfair is this for Kane to get it twice? You know, how do we
Oh,
talk to
that
him
would be
about it?
difficult.
You know, and so I wrote this book, and yeah, so mummy wears blue shoes, and in the end, she paints the blue shoes pink to make mum feel better. You know, so yeah, it's just a heartwarming way that it's not meant to be a medical text or a psychological text or something or book or a self-help. It's a conversation starter to say, hey, read this, and you can then explain to your children, hey, I'm going through the same thing at the moment. You might have noticed that grandma and granddad are taking you to football or taking or coming over and helping out, and I can't get out of bed and I can't do that. This is why. But it's going to be okay,
Yeah,
you know, that there's help and
I
there's a
think that's
support
good.
network. So yeah, so I wrote that. And what I love about it particularly is that the illustrations are done by my cousin, Emma. So
Oh,
yeah, so
well, that's nice.
it's
Yeah.
it's a book about families by family, you know. So and
Mm-hmm.
she's
Oh, that's
very
nice.
talented. So I wanted her to illustrate that for me. She's done a magnificent job, you know. So
And then you wrote another book
yeah.
recently. Is it out?
So, well, I've got one which is a text. It's called the Fundamentals of Government Investigation. So that's the investigation
Mm-hmm.
side. So it's a basic fundamental guide for those people that are in the investigation space, conducting government investigations. It's just sort of like an aid memoir sort of text and what have you. So they can help them through that. You know, have a reference book for them. So that's also out. But I'm saving up to get an editor for. I've written a book called, the working title's Shadows of Timbuktu. And being a law nerd, it's about the International Criminal Court. It's about 2012 uprising, a rebel uprising in Timbuktu in Mali, where the atrocities were committed. And a young boy Musa, he escapes, and he gets picked up by the Red Cross, and years later he's working in the International Criminal Court, and then a former Queensland detective named Harry Covington starts working there. He's contracted to help them in this investigation, and I won't give away too many of the plot twists, but yeah, they go back to
No,
go
don't.
back to Mali. They go back to Timbuktu. They investigate the crimes and stuff. So it's a thriller. It's a
Yeah.
it's sort
That's
of
good because you back it up with some real life stuff.
yeah. Well, it's a fiction novel, so but it is rooted in history, and Harry comes from Clare in Townsville, and that's where. So the main character Harry Covington is a combination of my grandfathers. So my grandfather Andy Covington, and Harold Furlong, so Harry Covington, and
Well,
when
that's nice.
my grandfather Covington was he was a great man. He was a magnificent. Geez, I miss him. But when he was after World War II, the Australian government had a scheme that they would give parcels of land to return vets, and he ended up in Clare in North Queensland on a cane farm up there, and so yeah, that's tied in with it and all that sort of stuff.
I like that. I like that you have put your family in it.
Yeah,
It's nice.
Yeah, it was. It's great.
Well, thank you for being here today, Scotty, and I'm happy, to have you and hear about your books and what your trauma to transformation. I that I feel very strongly about you. You've been a good friend for a long time, and of course, so I'm happy to see that you're doing better and doing all these things.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being given the opportunity, and I think what you're doing is great. It's wonderful. It's getting connection, and I think we've missed that today. Like I said earlier, in our world, I think we just need to slow down, just think about what's important, who's important, and just treat each other with a bit more compassion, tenderness, kindness, and I think we'll all win the race.
I agree with you. Well, thank you.
Thank you, mate. Take care. Bye.
If you would like more information on Scott's books, I will post the links to his books in the description of the episode. In the meantime, this is Kerry Love with Unfiltered with Love. Thank you for being here.